Right, we start in Burkina Faso now, where 13 people have been killed in a fresh attack in Pensa village, some 200 kilometers north of the capital city, Ouagadoougou. The attack comes just as the Commissioner of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees wrapped up his visit of the Sahel region to assess the magnitude of the humanitarian crisis caused by militant attacks across the region. Now, according to security sources, the security situation in the area is swiftly deteriorating. At least 18 civilians were killed on Monday after unidentified gunmen launched an attack in the northern part of the country. And on Saturday, heavily armed men on motorbikes attacked Lamdamol village just north of the capital. Well, let's bring you more on this now. We're joined by CGTN's Penina Karibe, who is live with us in Kaya in Burkina Faso. Penina, yet another attack in Burkina Faso. What more do we know about this incident that's left 13 people dead?
Well, Lindy, what we know at the moment is this attack happened during the day yesterday at 11 in the morning. A very brief attack, we are told. It lasted approximately 15 minutes. And from what we understand, what happened was armed groups or armed people came riding motorcycles. Each motorcycle had about 3 people, and they sprayed bullets on an entire village, that Pensa village. That 15 minutes, at the end of that ordeal, 12 people were lying dead on the ground, Lindy. So everybody took off. That's about 150 kilometers from where we are now, which is Kaya town. And so as you would imagine, these people are they're really cut off. There is no proper means of transportation. So we understand that a lot of them are still on the way coming here. Now, if you look behind me, I'm sure you can be able to see what's happening. This has now turned into a makeshift displacement camp for some of the people who managed to get some transportation and come here with their children. Now, we've spoken to the mayor of that area, and he told us that today morning he did come to Kaya to speak to the military, and he had to ask them to go back to that village and collect the corpses of the 12 people that they had confirmed at that time had died. It's a very volatile situation, Lindy. They're saying these attacks have been indiscriminate. Previously, they would choose the men and kill them, but now, starting the 31st of January, they've been talking to us and saying they've seen a change of tactic. They've been killing everybody from women and even children, Lindy.
It really is a frightening situation for the people that live there. And as you mentioned, Penina, you're standing in a makeshift camp. This really highlights how difficult the humanitarian situation must be on the ground. Is there enough assistance being given to these displaced people?
Quite frankly, Lindy, from what I have seen, I would say no. I mean, when you look at this place, this wasn't even, it hadn't really been earmarked to be a displacement camp. We got here planning to do a completely different story. And then we just got the news that this attack had happened, and the town was just learning about that attack. UNHCR was just learning about it. And so we first started seeing the first few people arriving here. This, where we're standing right now, this is somebody's private parcel of land, and he actually came from Cote d'Ivoire. He had planned to put up a private school here. Then he got the news that his family in Pensa village had been attacked. And naturally, you would expect that his heart would actually break for his family and even the people that he knows. And so he has given this piece of land temporarily to those coming in from that village. There is no sanitation, no water, no toilets. He's just brought in several liters of water really for the people to use overnight. Now, when we came along with UNHCR people, and they were just starting to register them so that we could be able to then know what it is they need and in what numbers. But yesterday we spoke to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, FILIPPO GRANDI. He just had wrapped up his tour of this region, and just take a listen to how he summarized the humanitarian situation, especially here in Burkina Faso.
We have here a very urgent humanitarian emergency, especially here in Burkina Faso. This is a country that at the beginning of 2019, a year ago, had a few thousand internally displaced people. We're now close to 600,000 at the latest count in December. I am persuaded there's many more. And I was in Kaya, in Dore, in places that are receiving these internally displaced. The local community are overwhelmed by having to accommodate in their rather simple homes and neighborhoods thousands of additional people. There's no water, Sanitation is a big problem. These are urban centers. Shelter is another very important need. Food, health, access to schools. Kids go to school. It's a fully fledged emergency situation.
And this humanitarian situation shows no sign of abating. Of course, Penina, it's fueled by this insecurity and by this violence. You mentioned that there's been a change of tactic, that these killings have become increasingly indiscriminate, killing men, women and children. How then, Penina, are security forces responding to these attacks?
We posed that question, Lindy, to those who've just arrived here and to the mayor of that village that was just attacked. And what he said was, it's been a very challenging task for the security personnel. And the single most reason for that he gave was because this is a very huge land, really, with very few people, villages scattered across huge swathes of land. There are some few police stations that have been set up to secure these areas, but they're just simply overwhelmed. And then again, there's also what I mentioned, that tactic of just ambush attacks, an attack that just lasts 15 minutes. And that would happen perhaps in a village that's about 30 kilometers, say for instance, from where we are. We understand that roads are in terrible condition. So for those police officers and the military to be able to promptly know where these attacks are going to happen, or even to respond when they get the distress calls from villagers, is really a difficult task for them. So that's the single biggest challenge that security authorities here are facing, Lindy.
It is a very difficult challenge indeed. Thank you so much. Penina Karibe joining us there from a town called Kaya in Burkina Faso.